Welcome everybody to my Introduction to Git and GitHub workshop. Today I'm going to be going through some of the basics on how to use Git, as well as how you can use that in your own projects and what all of the different keywords and terms mean. So without further ado, let's get started. So what is Git? Great question. Git is a distributed version control system, which means it can keep a copy of every stage of your development process. Some could describe it as steroids on backups on steroids. Some will describe it as just really good. It's really useful when you have many programmers working on the same code base, lots and lots of features which will help you kind of keep track of what you're doing. Now, what is GitHub? Now, think of GitHub like Google Drive or OneDrive. Now, think of Git like an external hard drive you back your photos to. GitHub is an online server for storing Git repositories, and it's way more than that. GitHub allows you to manage repositories, which we'll go into a little bit later, doing things like pull requests, issues, and more of them, which is super useful when you're working with a team with several people. Now, GitHub doesn't own Git, and Git doesn't own GitHub. It just uses Git. So for similar services like GitLab or company internal Git servers, they use Git, but they don't own it. It's a separate thing. Now, some may say that Git is easy to learn or it's not that complicated, but that's not necessarily true. But that's okay. I'm going to break it down for you so you'll understand the basics by the end of the workshop. Now, Git has a lot of jargon involved with it. While we're starting out, it can be pretty overwhelming, especially if you have one of those guides that has 100 plus pages or so and has words you've never heard before. We're going to pretend that doesn't exist because you're unlikely to need most of that for everyday Git needs. In fact, you only need to understand the basics for 99% of the things you're going to do with Git. So seriously, don't worry about the complicated stuff. You probably won't need it. Let's begin with some keywords. Some of these can seem a little odd, but it will all make sense shortly. So first of all, we have a repository. A repository is simply a clever directory or folder. It contains a folder called .git, and that does all the magic Git stuff that we don't care about. That can be sorted out later. It's just a folder for all of your code for your projects to go into. Now, next on our list is commit. A commit is a collection of content, a message about how you got there, and everything that came before it as well. Now, that is a little tricky to get your head around, and I'd recommend trying this one in practice, which helps see how it's used and what that really means. I'll be going over that in a bit too, so that should hopefully help too. Next on our list is push. Now, pushing is when we send the commits to the server, storing another copy of the repository. In this case, GitHub will be storing another version of our repository, our folder, our code base. Think of this like a sync button on Google Drive or OneDrive that makes sure that your local folder matches the one in the cloud. Now, how does pushing your code know where to go? Now, that's where a remote comes into hand. A remote is simply just a URL that tells your repository or folder of code where it should put it on the web. GitHub will give you this and just tell you that the repository that this is the place that you want it to send the code to. So you get the URL, you give it to GitHub, will give you this, you give it to your local one on your laptop, and then it will send it to the one on GitHub. Now we've talked about pushing our code. What if we want to get the newest version of the code from the server? Now that's where pulling comes into handy. So pulling is where you ask the server for the latest changes. It will then sync them with your local repository so everything is up to date. Now we're getting into the coolest part of Git. This is where Git stands out for collaboration. Branches are very useful when you have multiple people working on the same project, but why? Branches are kind of confusing, and think of it like this. When you make a repository, there's one branch by default. We call this master. Let's say we want to try and make a new feature, but didn't want it to break the current code. Well, that's where this comes in handy very nicely. A branch basically takes the entire code base and makes a copy of it. And then you can modify the code base without breaking any of the code that you might have used in production. So think of like you've got a website and you want to make a new page, but you don't want that page to go live until you've got all of the content you need for it. So you create a separate branch and do it all in your own kind of isolated environment, which is quite nice. And then when you're happy, that can then go live onto the master branch. So this can become particularly useful when you're working with several people because you can all have your own copy of the code without getting into each other's hair. Now, what if we want to integrate these new changes into the existing code? This is where merging comes in. So let's say you've got two branches and you want to merge them together to become one. Sometimes this is really nice and everything just works. Sometimes everything breaks and burns and everyone cries, and this is known as a merge conflict. Sometimes something has changed on both the master branch and the new branch, and Git, when you're merging them together, Git doesn't know what change from either one that you want. So sometimes this can be a simple fix and it will do it itself. It will suggest what it should do. Sometimes you'll have to go in and do it yourself. If you've probably seen this thing before, and it's very relatable for many of those who've used Git before. Now, here's a nice diagram that shows what's going on. We start off with the master branch and then we branch off. Master continues getting commits while the new branch does. And eventually the two will combine to make the new start of master. So if you see on the left hand side, we've got the common base. This is where the current state of the branch is. And when the green is the new branch, where we've got our new commits, which are represented as the dots. The commits on the master branch are represented as dots in blue. And eventually they could combine in a merge and create a merge commit, which is basically saying new changes. Now we've got that out of the way. Now let's talk about good ways to actually merge these changes to make sure that these new changes are good and aren't going to break anything. So a pull request is where someone asks for someone else to review the changes they've made in their branch before it gets merged into another branch. This can help stop things breaking and go horribly wrong. Last thing you want is broken code going into live production, such as onto your main website. So for the Hack Quarantine website, for example, we have pull requests for every time someone's going to make a change to make sure that it's going to work and it isn't going to take our website down, as there's quite a few of you checking out our website at the moment for the schedule, the live stream, and the track information. Now we've covered all of the key terms, I think it's time to put them into practice. So what we're going to do now is I'm going to open a new terminal. I'm going to go into my workshop folder first. So let me just sort that out. Ooh, you can't type when you're doing like a live demo. Apart from you guys can't see what I'm doing yet, which is the impressive part, I'd suppose. Okay, cool. So what I'm going to do is just remove the folder from earlier. And okay, so if I mirror my display now, you should be able to see what I'm doing. There you go. So here we go. I've got a nice I've got a terminal here. Now I'm going to make a new folder. I'm going to call it Git Workshop, and I'm going to just navigate into that workshop folder like so. Inside of here, there is absolutely nothing. As you can see, we have nothing in here. Now to turn this into a Git repository, if I type Git in it, it's going to initialize it as an empty repository. However, there is still nothing in here, apart from there is now a .git folder. And if I just do a tree on that, you'll be able to see it's got all sorts of complicated magic that we don't care about, and we're not going to touch that because it will probably break. Now, what we're going to do is I'm going to touch a Python file. Very simple, and we're going to edit it in Vim. It's going to be very simple. Oh, hello. Hello, Hack Quarantine. There we go. So, very simple Python file. If I run that, it just says hello, Hack Quarantine. All nice and simple. Now, I'm also going to touch a README. A README is effectively just, well, it's a hint in the name. It's effectively just instructions on how to use the repository. So we'll also edit the README, and we'll put in that, we'll just put Hack Quarantine Git Workshop. And I'm going to write some instructions that say to run it, you just type Python. So people know how to run my code in my repository if they look at it on GitHub. So now if I type git status, it will tell us what's happening. What's happening here is it doesn't actually know what's happening with these files. Git's like, I can see them, but I have no idea what they are. Would you like me to do something with them? If so, add them. So what we're going to do now is I'm going to add both of these files. So I'm going to add the workshop one first. And we can see here, Git can now see this file, and it's like, okay, you want me to do something with this now? I've got hold of it. And the README is still sat there going, I don't know what you want me to do. So what we're going to do is I'm going to add the README as well and commit these. So now if I type git commit -m, I'm able to give it the title initial commit, which is what quite commonly used on GitHub to kind of, and just say, this is just the first commit where I've just basically set the project up. It's got nothing relevant. So I'm going to do that. And what it's going to do is going to make a hash at that point in time. And now I can go, if I type git log, I can actually see that in the history. So I can see there's been a commit. Cool. All very nice. Now what I want to do is put that onto GitHub. Now, if I type git push, as we talked about earlier, it's going to complain because it doesn't know what we're pushing to. Now, we haven't got a remote, so what we're going to do is we're going to slide over to GitHub over here. I'm going to go to my repositories, and we're going to see I actually made this workshop earlier. I had some issues on the live stream, so I'm going to quickly delete this. We'll just while I sort that out. But then we'll create a new workshop. Oh, apparently I can't type. Ooh, why can't I type? Oh no, I have to type my name. Ugh. Because I'm in organizations or something. Ugh. Okay, so now I've deleted that repository. I'm going to create a new one. So if I go to new repository and click new, in here what I can do is I can type hq git -workshop, and I can just say hack git workshop. Ooh, let's put a capital W on the hack quarantine live stream. There we go. I can set it to be public or private, and I can also initialize the README, so it will give me one already, but I don't need one because I've already got one in my file, which we can see here. There we go. You can see our README there. You can also add Gitignore, which basically tells it to ignore all of the kind of build files or credentials that you might want. So let's say you've got a config.json that's got a Discord token in it. You don't want that going live because that means people can then access your Discord bot. So what you'll do is you'll put it in the Gitignore, and it means you can have it in that folder, but Git won't touch it. You've also got a license, so you can also add a license to say how people can use your code, if they can do certain things with it. So we're having a look there. Be careful, because if you set a license and then change it, it gets a bit messy. Okay, so let's create the repository. And what it's going to do here is it's going to give us a wonderful list of instructions and say, well done, you've made an empty repository. Apart from we haven't, because we've got one over here. But if I type git remote -v, there isn't any remotes. So what we're going to do is we're going to take the remote, which is this one. This is the SSH remote. If you haven't got an SSH key set up on GitHub, take the HTTPS one. But I'm going to use SSH just to speed things up. And then as the thing says here, for an existing repository, which we've already done, because we've already done these first few lines. If you think about it, we've already touched some of the files, we've already made a README and so on, so it doesn't matter. We want to add the remote. So actually, I'm going to copy that line of code. I'm going to add the remote like so. So now if I type git remote -v, it says it can see the remotes. And then I'm going to push it to master. So if I type git push now, it's going to say, I don't know what you want me to push to, because you can have different branches on GitHub than you would on your current. So if I make new branches, it needs to know which branch it's pushing to on GitHub. So if I type git push --set origin and then put master, because that's the branch we're on, as you can see on the right hand side, it's going to push the changes to master. Now all this is that's just a shorthand to say push, and also set the upstream to master. Now if I refresh the page, you should be able to see our README that says the thing we typed in there and the Python file here that just says hello hack quarantine. All very nice. Now we've done that, I think it's time to make a change on GitHub actually. So let's go to the Python file, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to create a method. I'm going to call it main, and I'm going to just tell it to print this is the next step of the workshop. There we go. So there we go. So now I'm going to put this, and it has an automatic name. I'm going to just say add next section, so I can look back in time and see why. Now I've made a never commit. If I click on code, I can actually see there's 2 commits now. If I look in the history, it'll tell me there's the initial commit. If I click that, it'll tell me what was added. And if I click the next section, it will say, congrats, you added this new bit in this pile, which is very convenient, very handy. But if I have a look inside of the workshop file, I can't see it. So what I can do here is I can do git pull. And there you can see it's now fast forwarded. So now my local repository is up to date with the one on the server, GitHub this is. So now if I type cat again, we can now see it here. Perfect. Now I want to create a new feature, but I don't want to break anything. So I'm going to type the command git branch, and that'll tell us that we're on master branch. Now, if we do git branch, git checkout -b, and the name of our new feature, I'm going to call it memes. Why not? It's going to create us a new branch and check us out to it. So it's basically created the new branch and swapped us to it, which is quite convenient. As you can see now, I'm on the memes branch, and I can see there's nothing on here. So what we're going to do is we're going to create a new file. This one's going to be called memes.py. And inside of here, I'm actually going to open VS Code for this one. There we go. So inside of this one, we're going to create a function called getMeme. And what this is going to do is we're actually going to just return a random next in. There you go. And people can then, so hopefully if I just test this, getMeme should return. So if I just quickly run that, it should return a random number. Ooh, it doesn't like that. So because I didn't give it a number, I didn't tell it where to. Let's give it 5. Right, try again. A and B. Ooh. Oh, it wants to know where to start and where to end. All right, fair enough. There we go. It's given us 5. If I do it again, 3, 5, 2, 5. Ooh, 8. Okay, beautiful. That's a meme. Don't ask why. It is. So I'm going to get rid of this line of code because we don't need that. It means we can now import this into Workshop. So I'm now going to make a commit to say that I've done that. So if I do git status, we can see there's a new file. I'm going to put add memes and put add random number method. Okay, so now if I do git push, it doesn't know about that. So I need to do the same thing of setting it the upstream and also telling GitHub what branch that is. So if I type memes, it's going to merge it. Beautiful. So now if I go to GitHub, it will tell me, it's already told me there is a new branch called memes, and I can actually switch branches and see these changes if I want to, but I don't want to do that just yet. Now what we're going to do is we're going to go into Workshop on here. Actually, we'll do it on the terminal. So we've got this wonderful thing. I'll just put get meme. I'm going to change this quickly. Actually, we're going to put get random, and this one's going to return. This one's just going to print out. This one's going to return. What meme could I give it? Decisions. There we go. 21. Got 'em. Don't ask, don't get. So we've got two methods now. And we're going to go into, we then open the Workshop thing inside of VS Code. What we've got here is we can now get the main method to call this. Oh, I hate it. Thanks, I hate it. Why are we using two indents? It's fine. I'll try not to think about it too much. So we can then actually, let's just get rid of that. We'll import our memes thing. There we go. If I do memes dot get random and just print that out. Well, hey. So now if I run that, it should give us, oh god, it ran it like, oh no, hang on. There we go. It's given us quite literally nothing. I love it. Oh yeah, because we haven't called the main method, have we? Alright, let's just check that at the bottom. Not very nice Python, but it will do. There we go. Hey, it's the next step of my Workshop. Done. We can do the same with this and do memes.getMeme. That will give us everything we want. Beautiful. So what we're going to do is go back to terminal. And what's happened here is we've generated something we don't want. Now, we don't want cache. Cache is not useful for Git because it's going to constantly change regardless. So we want to ignore that. So I'm going to touch a .gitignore file. Now, inside of here, I've got a global one as well. Inside of here, we're going to add that py cache, like so. So now, if I type git status, it's going to be gone. So we won't accidentally commit that. Now I'm going to just commit that on its own, just so that I can look back in time and see what I did, and say add .gitignore. And you can also add, if you add another -m, you can actually add a description. So I'm going to say ignore that py cache, Now, if I push those changes, it's going to go to our branch, like so. Wonderful, here we go. So now if I type git status, we've got our two other ones. So I'm going to add both of those at the same time and commit and say memes are finalized. So now if I was to merge this branch in, everything would merge in nicely and it would all end up to date in master. But I'm not going to do that. That's far too easy. So the way I would do that is I would then go to master branch again. So check out master. So I'm in master and then do git merge and the memes. Apart from, I don't want to do that because that's going to just work. Because if we go to Insight, I think it's Insight, yeah, and then click network, it's going to show us that there's been absolutely no changes on master branch since this one. Therefore, meaning that this is the most up-to-date change, and when it merges in, it's effectively just one long straight line. So we need to do some stuff to master branch to get it to be unhappy, don't we? So what I'm going to do now is we'll open this folder in VS Code. I'm going to close this now. There we go. We'll make that full screen. And we need to break this now. We need to do stuff to make this unhappy. So I'm going to make a memes file just to really confuse it. And in here, I'm going to put completely different things in it. I'm going to call it cats. Cats. Print. Oh, we'll just return it. Return. Meow. There we go. And we'll also put a method called dogs. And we'll just put woof. And we'll put fish, which is going to return bubble. There we go. Perfect. What more could you want? So now if I go to workshops, I can actually then put this is the last step of the workshop, which is going to really confuse it. And I can then import, I'm going to leave that in, and then it's going to get really confused. I'm hoping so. If it doesn't, then we've got some problems. There we go. Actually, I'm going to do that, which is bad Python practice, but this is part of the workshop. Always put your imports at the top unless you've got good reason. I'm only doing that so that otherwise Git will see that import memes was at the top of both files, and I want it to not be at the top of both files, so it gets slightly confused. Now, if I do this one more time, I can do print. I can print memes.cat, which should print out cat, memes.dog, and I can do print.memes.fish. Now, what that will do is when I run that, it will print out. Ooh. Why did that not work? It should. Wait, what did it print out? Hello, hack quarantine. Ah, yes, again, we're not calling the main method. Always an easy mistake. So if we just quickly run that one more time. It doesn't know what, I call it dogs. Cat and dogs. Yeah. Easily done. Cats. Fish. Nah, I just call it fish. Let's not overcomplicate it, shall we? There we go. So if we run that one more time, here you go. It says meow woof bubble, which is exactly what we wanted to do. Okay, so what we'll do is we're going to commit these to GitHub. See, PyCache has turned up once again. I'm going to pretend that's not there and let the merge sort that out. So I'm going to just add our memes file and our workshop file. So Git doesn't know about that. Git still won't know about that, and we'll just leave it for now. So what I'll do is I'll do git commit -m, and I'll say animal sounds, new animal sounds, let's call it. Try and use your commit messages in the present tense because it makes a little bit more sense. New animal sounds. There we go. Easy. All right, so now if I let you get status, it will say, woo, it's just that PyCache. Now if I just push, go back to GitHub, go to code. There we go. Everything is going to just sort of work. There we go. You can see we've got our new memes folder, and we can see the branch memes as well. So what we could do now is merge it in the terminal and do it all ourselves, but I'm going to use GitHub for this because she had to do a pull request. So if you look onto GitHub, it's actually suggesting we do a pull request. If we go over to the pull request tab, we can see we can make a new one, and we can actually pick the branches we want to compare. I want to compare memes to master, and it's like, ooh, you can't merge this. There are problems, but we're going to do it anyway. So we'll create the merge request. We can see all the commits we're adding, but then it gets a bit confused, and that was exactly what I was trying to achieve. I'm going to put add memes to the project so that when people review it, they can see. Currently, I can't even add anyone to review it. I can assign myself to it to like fix any problems. You can add some labels to make it, this is a bug being fixed. This is, or there's, in documentation or something like that, and all sorts of other stuff. Now, I'm going to just say, I've added memes to the project. So good, much hype. And then I can click create pull request, and what it's going to do here is create the pull request and tell us that there have been conflicts with these two files. Now let's have a look at these two files. GitHub means we can actually just solve them in the file, but I'm going to do it in my terminal and show you how to do it that way. What it's done here is it's basically saying this is from the memes branch and this is from the master branch, and it's like, what do you want between these blocks? Do you want all of it? Do you want one or the other? Do you want some? I can now go in and cherry pick, or I can let VS Code do it all for me. Workshops is the same. It's going, the main is, that bit's exactly the same, so we're going to ignore that. But inside of here, we've got this bit here, which is from the master branch, and we've got this bit here from the memes branch. Now, they both look the same, in my opinion. They both are in the same place, but they do very different things. Now, I want it to do all of the things, so I'm actually going to get it to, I'm going to have to manually go in and do it myself. So what we'll do is we'll go back to pull request, back to here. I opened a pull request. Woo. Now it says view command line instructions. Now let's have a look. This is what it wants us to do. It says it wants us to fetch. So I'm going to copy these. And we're going to put these into the terminal. So we're going to do get fetch origin, which means it's going to get all the information from the server. Get checkout -b. Already has the branch memes because it already knows about it. It's assuming that this is on someone else's computer. And then what it wants us to do is merge master into it. Hold up. Am I merging it the wrong way? Into master from memes. Okay, I've done this correctly. It's all good. It wants us to bring the latest changes from master into our branch. So I'm going to go to our memes branch, memes, and then I'm going to do git merge master. And that is going to cause a conflict and get very unhappy. And we can see the conflict inside of VS Code. So in here, it highlights it for us and it says, would you like to accept the current changes, which is the stuff already in master? Do you want to change the incoming, which is the stuff in our memes branch, or both? Now I'm going to click accept both. It's going to get rid of those different signs. Now I don't need the memes in there twice. I'm going to put the hello hack quarantine bit at the top, but we have two main methods now. So I'm going to just copy all of this code like so, and post it all in here. Actually, what we're going to do is, I'm just going to fix the indents. I'm going to put that all up to the top, go away. There we go. So now it should, if I run, oh, it won't run actually because I haven't fixed this one yet. But if I was to run this, it would then print out, this is the next step, and then this is the last step. Pretty simple. Then up here we've got, it doesn't know what to do. Now we just want all of this. So I'm going to just accept both, and that should just work. Now if I run it again, ta-da! It said next step of the workshop, it's given us 5 and 21 got them, so it's given us our memes, then it gives us our cat stuff, just how we wanted it to, which has made integrating this very easy. So now I've done that, it's saying I need to, now it says step 2, merge the changes and update on GitHub, so now I need to check out master. However, I'm pretty certain that's not going to work. Yeah. So I'm going to try that. Oh, sorry, you need to resolve your current index. So I'm going to add these and be like, I has merged the branches. These are awful commit messages. There we go. So now I can do git checkout master, and I'm on master now. Now if I do this, it's now come up with, this is a merge, but it's managed to deal with all the conflicts itself. So I do that, and then I can do git. So if I actually refresh this page, it might be aware of what's going on. No, it's not yet. And then if I do git push, it should be aware now. So if I refresh that page one last time, there we go. Now it says here that I made a merge commit and I've merged these into master. Now it gives you the option to delete branches, which is very helpful if you're adding lots and lots of new features. And I can quickly pop over to here quickly. And you can see here that I've got all my new features. I've got the .gitignore, the readme, the memes, and we'll just have a look. And you can see in the history that I can see we made our initial commit, we added the next step, ran the numbers, we added the Gitignore with a little description. The memes were finalized, then we added some animal noises, and then we merged them together, and then GitHub just said merge branch memes, which was convenient. If I quickly go to Insight, we can have a little look inside of here, and we can see in the network that there was 2 separate branches. Oh, come on. Or not. Boo. There we go. So what we can see inside of here is the memes branch has come off separately. We actually had to pull the changes into the memes branch so it was up to date, so we could make sure that everything worked, and then we merged it into master. And that is how we did that. So if I press this button, hey, you can't see me now. That's a bit sad. That's fine. So thank you very much for coming to my Git workshop. If you've got any problems, please come and say hi to me on Twitter. My Twitter link can be found over here, and I'm more than happy to help out. It's also my Discord username, so come and say hi to me in the Hack Quarantine Discord server. More than happy to give you a hand with your Git problems. You will probably find Googling some of the problems on Git is easier than doing some of the others, so I'd highly recommend just Googling around, having a look. Some of the problems are a bit obscure, but for the most part, those are the kind of the things you'll be using every day, and you won't really need to touch much else to do the basics, especially working in a team. Hope that was helpful to you all, and I'll see you for my next workshop on Thursday, which is building a Discord bot using Python and integrating it with Reddit somehow.